Good morning. Christmas rocks.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, you wonderful old building and loan.
Tony Caravan.
You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, not what you don't.
If you're really Santa Claus, you can get it for me. And if you can't, you're only a nice man with a white beard, like Mother said.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, no!
It's the holiday season.
All right. We finally got it right after 3 shows of it looping. I figured it out. The title of this show is Thinkin Bout Drinkin. Let me double check what I wrote. Thinking about drinking on Thirsty Thursday. I was going to say Thursday, but I just said Thursday. And you can see the title card, or the thumbnail as they call it, the scene from outside from across the place where I live, across from my little cabin house in the woods. I decided to spend this season alone in the mountains. And I'm going to be drinking. I might be drinking some beer today. Anyway, that's a title card. The morning show. Right? Isn't this the morning show?
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
Okay, thanks. I have all these female voices that tell me all these things, the various voice assistants. The one voice assistant now is speaking in a British accent, and is waiting for me to say thank you now, because I've said thank you a few times. So I noticed this morning when I had to turn on the light in the kitchen while I was making my cereal, my porridge, and I looked over and its little ring light was still on. So I had to say, thank you. You are very welcome. Anyway, here we are. It's closing in on the...
It's the holiday season.
Well, it is the holiday season, but we're kind of really closing in on...
Christmas rocks.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, you wonderful old building and loan.
I don't know what was so wonderful about that building alone. That's about the time where I turned it off when I watched it. So anyway, here we are. It's 4:59, 5 o'clock, 5 a.m. Eastern Time on the 23rd of December in the calendar year 2021, depends on your vantage point, what you believe in, what you think is happening. I was fortunate. I got the this on, and I've got my Santa Christmas moose. He's thinking about drinking, and so I might as well go the full thing. I have a full-blown Santa outfit left over from my DJ days. I think I explained that once before. Slept pretty good last night. Went to bed early, but the cat wakes me up. The cat's nocturnal, and instead of going around prowling, I guess it used to come downstairs. But I don't know. It kind of just hangs upstairs mostly, and then it comes down in the morning. I have camera 2 set up today, and it's facing something that in the distance you can't really see, because it's not a night vision camera. But if you look closely, you can see across the lake, you can see the water rippling along the column, and across the lake you can see a snowman in a window, and the red and green light of the camera. And I don't know, it's not going to get daylight today until I believe 7:30. I'll tell you in a second. Let's double check. 7:35 a.m. is sunrise today in my neck of the woods here in the Mid-Atlantic states. Today is going to be cloudy and cold. Tomorrow, chance of a thunderstorm, and then it's going to rain for about a week. And yesterday, a friend of mine came down, took me up to the Dollar Tree. Oh, I was trying to tell you, my coffee that I was drinking is vanilla roast from the Dollar Tree. And I decided rather than mixing it in with my 100% Colombian and the hazelnut, because I keep this big can and I just kind of keep mixing in the coffee. I keep it in the refrigerator. But it's a big can. You know, it's, I don't know. You know, it's not like the regular can, tall, thin can of coffee. This is like wide, you know, whatever. It holds a lot of coffee. And the 100% Colombian is authentic. I got that from Aldi. I believe that's, you know, trustworthy. But, you know, the Dollar Tree coffee, you know, it says vanilla roast. And sometimes I wonder if it's like they just take like something like, you know, these things that come from China. I hate to be this way, but, you know, I've had such bad experiences with things. So my theory on that, I don't know if I'm drinking this, is like, imagine if they just got like sawdust, right? And like, it had like some coffee flavoring, you know, tint to it and vanilla, you know, and then flavored the sawdust. And yeah, no weird idea. I don't know why that thought came to me. I hope wasn't some like, you know, mind thing, you know.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
Vanilla flavored filtered sawdust. Nah. With the thing in it. My CPU's way up. I think it's because I have camera 2 set up. I was hoping that we'd see more, but, you know, we're not. It's too far for me to reach, and I don't feel like getting up to change it. So I guess we're stuck with it. The Essential Beat Poetry of Tony Caravan. Don't forget that we always have the
Sweaters and ex-girlfriends.
Tony Caravan's The Worst Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa Song Ever Written or Sung is available for your holiday listening pleasure or playlist. It's available on Spotify for free. YouTube. There's one on YouTube. There's a version on YouTube. There's two. There's one through CD Baby that just has like a picture of me in Hollywood standing in front of, like, if you could see the Hollywood sign barely in the distance. And then there's another one I made that is kind of funky and has the lyrics like in the Star Wars fashion, the beginning of the first Star Wars movie. And then later on it gets into some funky stuff for like where it gets into this, where there's like the like spatial thing towards the end. Let's see if we could find it.
Mindless followers barely aware of what it means to be you.
There's like this weird thing. Let's see if I can find it.
Overcrowded soup kitchens and shelters with society parties for slumlords.
You know, it is a classic song. It really is. And, you know, I mean, granted, it has gotten listened to, and it has a couple bars even on iTunes, you know, Apple's site. But not nearly as big as it should be. You know, do you ever hear Soma FM and they have all this? I submitted it to them, and I don't know if they play it, if they kept it in their playlist or not. I think another thing that has happened with me musically, and it's too bad creatively that this has occurred. This is just going to be like kind of free form today.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
When isn't it? But, I've gone through, like I say, I have strong opinions, and I've gone through phases where I've felt strongly about one thing and strongly about another thing. And now I'm kind of like, I'm really not political. I mean, someone would say, oh, I don't know. I listened to your thing the other day, and it's, well, no, I'm critical. All right. Not political. Okay. I criticize the entire concept, right? Because to me, it's all a corporatocracy. So, and it's a world crime syndicate, like right out of some, Buckaroo Banzai, comic. But people will look at you, I think, particularly maybe even program director types, and they make a decision based upon something may have said, written, spoke about, or whatever. And if that doesn't match their own individual, right, political, social, whatever it is, ideology, then they'll say, oh, we can't play that song. Can't play that guy. Right? And I've heard, and this happens to a lot of people, not just like someone like me, but it happens to like big names, people who have sold, gold record, platinum record people. If they come out and say something or tweet something or, comment in an interview about something, then they're like blacklisted. And I'm not going to get on this rant. I'm not going to rant today. We'll just take it easy, have some fun, thinking about drinking. I mean, it's 5 a.m. I'm drinking coffee, but later on today, I may go live on Locals when I open up beer. Because I think I have one 30-minute live, stream left for this month. And we'll see what happens with Rumble next year if they're going to open up live like this. And if I still have the will to do this. But back to this, just to finish this thought. And it's no different. It's like this thing.
Your papers, please.
And this apparent thing where they're going to send out like tests to everybody or something like that. Like home test. And then what are they going to do? Like if you don't return it, what's going to happen? Are you going to be is it going to be like Australia? You're going to be hauled off to some detention camp or something? Right? Right? If somebody sends it to me, I'm like, I've been tested. I don't know if I want to put something I get in the mail in my mouth. Do you know what I mean? It's like this is starting to get really weird and authoritarian beyond, we're talking, someone rightfully said like what's going on in Austria, and over there, it makes sense, but because it's happened before, but it's like Gestapo tactics, right? And this is starting to get crazy, we're starting, this is like the Stasi state. Over, the flu. But, back to this thing. So you say something and someone, for like freedom of speech, freedom to question the thing. The scientific method is for scientists to run tests. The whole idea of science, there's more attempts to disprove a thing in the scientific method than there is to prove it. You understand? That's usually the process. The process is like, we want to show that this thing is, is totally true by by trying to disprove it. You want to poke holes in an argument, and if you can't poke holes in an argument, then the argument stands. It stands up. And so a critic of that thing, you say, well, we've tried that, we've repeated the experiment, we've done this, we've done that. instead of like the FDA or something saying it'll take 70 years for them to release their testing data, right, through FOIA requests. Now, I have a question about that, and no one ever asked this question. Like I say, am I the last person that is like immune to the brainwashing too? I mean, maybe because I cut the cord. I've heard several people talk about this, that there was a FOIA request by various scientists or some media people or whomever, right? And they said, we want to see the, the paperwork, the, freedom of information, right? We want to see what, the processes and the studies and stuff, whatever it was that made you give approval to these various things, right? That they're trying to force upon us, right? Which our taxpayer dollars paid for. Now they did release. Apparently, some stuff was released, but that was through that was some NIH things that were incriminating against the big F guy and his boss, who I think has resigned. So that might have freaked out the FDA. But the FDA basically said we could release something like 500 pages a month or something, but it'll take us it'll be like 50 or 70 years before you'll get everything. I mean, it sounds like the Kennedy, papers, right? It's like almost 60 years later, and they still haven't released all those documents. And the question one has to ask, after 60 years, the stuff they're holding back and things that were still redacted, this idea of national security or something. It's like, wait a second, it was 60 some years ago. I mean, the government wasn't hiring exactly 18-year-olds. So if somebody was 20, if anybody still alive in those days is in their 80s. So what kind of crazy thing are they really hiding? Right? What's the big secret? What's the big national security secret from the 60s? You know what I'm saying? So what's the FDA saying? Oh, it'll take us 50 or 70 years to release all these documents. And I'm going, wait a second. He rushed this thing through. It didn't take you 70 years to prove the thing. No one asked that question. That was no retort by anyone. Right? And it's like, so what? You have to go through and see if you have to redact things, or you have to put people on it to national security. I mean, this is the Food and Drug Administration. There should be no national security issues there. There should be no redactions. This is a process of testing. So apparently that they tested, some of these they tested 30,000 people and what the procedures were, and what the results were, and whatever. So it's like, just release the documents. Who cares if there's 10, 20,000, 30,000? Who cares how many of them? Release them in a pile to whoever put in the FOIA request, as long as it was properly requested and all that stuff. It should basically take you as long as it takes you to hit, to have your laser printers or whatever you're using print out the documents and contact the people and have them either pick them up, or have it delivered to their place. However that's done. I never put in a FOIA request, so I'm not sure if you have to if it's a big box, you have to pick it up, or if they send it to you and bill you the shipping. I don't know. Right? Maybe it's free because it's the United States Postal Service and government thing. I used to get the Congressional Record delivered to my house. This is years and years ago, decades ago. And I had to stop it because it was ridiculous. But it just came free to my door like every day or two. That's how I first realized that there was a lot of fishy stuff going on in Congress, because I was getting stacks of the Congressional Record. And I would go through it. But it got to a point where I couldn't keep up with it. Because at that time I was reading the local paper, like the Wall Street Journal. I was commuting in the main line Philadelphia, and I had a job in Center City, down in Center City, Philadelphia. You know, on the other side, the opposite, like where the Liberty Bell is. I used to work down there for a while, I don't know, a year or so. And so, you know, you're on the commuter train and everybody's reading their newspaper, you know, going down the main line. I could walk to the thing, or I was married at the time. All the wives would drop off their husbands. It was a scene right out of like, you know, like Mad Men or something, you know, that series. But it's the way it was, you know. So sometimes I would bring a congressional record with me for the ride, you know, back or something. And that was a real eye opener for me just to see what was going on back then, and you know, now it's way worse. But yeah, how could they? You see what I'm saying? And so when I first heard that, and this was a few days ago, I said, "There's no way it would take 50 years, 70 years or something." And you can only release 500 a month or something. Yeah, again, this wasn't a request to the Pentagon looking into weapons of mass destruction, and they want to cover, you know, they have national security to, protect, you know, CIA agents working in embassies or something weird like that, which now is pretty much public knowledge. I mean, under the last administration, a director of the CIA literally became the Secretary of State, right? He's in charge of basically, you know, the embassies and diplomats. So it's actually, they don't even hide it anymore, right? It's now common knowledge, public knowledge, right? So you might as well put a CIA director in charge of the State Department, because that's basically what it is. And all the other countries. You know, it's like, remember when the Chinese down in Texas, when they were caught, they were burning all those documents when they got caught, and then they expelled a bunch of people out of D.C., the 2 different embassies. So, I mean, that's what goes on there. You know, this isn't, you know, cocktail parties and détente, as they used to call it, right, during the Cold War. No, it's spying. He's just basically a spy. You know, yeah. I mean, you know, there's some pencil pusher bureaucrats that deal with things like visas and all that kind of stuff, sure. But, you know, predominantly it's their head. That's the spy headquarters. We know that. All right. But anyway, this isn't about that. Okay. This is the Food and Drug Administration and people putting in a Freedom of Information Act request for the documentation on what the process was and in the approval process of these things they're trying to force on people, right? This is a legitimate request. There's no national security involved in there whatsoever, right? There's nothing to hide. There's nothing that needs to be redacted. And these are all public officials and or bureaucrats. So there should be nothing even that needs to be, you know, redacted. In other words, black magic markered out, right? Because this should have been these tests should have been conducted, you know, straightforward. And someone would say, "Oh, well, there's, you know, corporate, you know, secrets," or no. You know, there should be nothing whatsoever. This is open. The problem they had was that this process should have been transparent from the very start. The question is, what's in this thing? You know, and I was like, well, we know that. I mean, they've already come out and said it was an mRNA. Well, you know, well, if that's the case, why is it going to take them 70 years? And why is it like we can only really go through 500 documents a month or something? Do you see what I mean? This is really fishy, like beyond fishy. And this is by the FDA that has the worst track record in the world, in history, I think, of any organization that has ever existed. Can you think of anyone else besides the FBI? But I mean, in all seriousness, the FDA has the worst track record. They're constantly approving foods and drugs, and you're constantly, every time you turn on a TV, you see an ad from a law firm that's basically saying you can get a settlement, you're eligible for settlement money and all this stuff, blah blah blah. All right? Because of something that they approved that basically killed, maimed, or did some kind of other damage to somebody. So their track record is not good. And so the question is, now also what they've done with this thing is they have, in this rushing out of this, they gave them blanket immunity from lawsuits. So, those people who have died or had complications or any kind of problems because of these things, and who will maybe in the future, right? Because who knows about just constantly dosing and dosing. Like I said, if you remember that movie with Robin Williams, Awakenings. Remember that movie where those people were frozen? And then he started giving them like dopamine type of stuff. It was like cocaine. And they were giving it to them. And he got some movement or something. The guy had a theory that maybe that would do something. Those receptors would. And the next thing you knew, one day they came in and these people who had been like frozen with whatever that disease was, were all wandering around, running around the ward, right? And, and then he, kept them on some dopamine regimen. But in time, they needed more and more and more of it. And it just, then they went back into being frozen, right? Because, it just wasn't enough. But they had that piece of life. They were awakened for a little while. And so when I see them saying you need to, you'll take a booster and you'll need another booster and maybe more boosters. I could see Robin Williams and that guy in the lab, like just, putting more and more, of this drug into it, with their little weighing scale as if it was some scientific thing. It was like one thing they were giving them. Right. And I'm going, what that's like the most ridiculous thing in the world. Oh, okay. If the first two didn't work or they wore out, you're just going to keep adding more. I don't know. And then, and now supposedly there's a treatment and a pill by Pfizer or somebody that they emergency released or something. Way I understand it, and this is weird, is that we know that there was one of the components of the so-called kitchen sink treatment that Psaki and Rogan and all those guys got, Tim Pool, was a certain thing that is no longer under patent. In other words, it's generic. It reached a generic stage. And so no one can profit on it. So basically, apparently, the drug company, people they don't care because they're so brainwashed. So they went back in and they basically like kind of just reworked the, the chemical formula, right, structure of this thing that's not in the patent, that's in generic. And so what they're doing is they're going to go out and sell to the government for more billions of dollars something that was based on something that was generic. Yeah. You don't know what you don't know, man. And it's really weird. But this idea, when they said it was take 70 years to release something that they rushed through in a few months. Some people say they developed that thing in like a couple of weekends, actually. That's how simplistic this was. And now apparently, I don't know if you know this stuff, and people don't watch this show, that you might have caught that the Pentagon has produced one, right? Through Walter Reed Army Hospital. They apparently have, because they're the people that are obviously giving Biden, whatever it is that he can now stand there without his wife holding his arm, right? Because he can at least do that, even though he's still semi-spaced out. But I mean, he's able to walk on his own. He doesn't need his wife holding his arm and sitting next to him now, right? So, they're pretty sophisticated. Walter Reed is like one of, they got their acts together. And so they apparently developed a single shot thing, right, that is based more like a flu shot. In other words, instead of messing with your, trying to mess with your RNA and all this kind of stuff, and I showed you my negative result test that, yesterday, that, it says right on it, it was an RNA test, blah, blah, blah. Well, apparently, test result. And apparently what they have now is just basically the good old-fashioned vaccine that the military is releasing, which is probably what's prompted the Pfizer to come up with the pill, because they realized that their thing isn't working. And so if they want to keep getting hundreds of billions of dollars from the federal government, they better have some other replacement. So they're saying by mid-January, they're going to be making these things available to doctors nationwide. And in the meantime, by mid-January, they're going to be sending out to everybody in the country like a home testing kit or something. You see what I mean? And so so the question is, see, this is the fishy part, but they won't release the science to us, right, to the people requesting the FOIA documents. So people have a right to know before, in other words, you have a right to know what's in it. And I would, like I jokingly said, I'm drinking this coffee from the Dollar Tree, which, by the way, tastes like crap. It tastes like nothing. I guess they, I put it's pure vanilla. It was vanilla roast. And I'd put more than the amount. It's like I made it stronger, but it doesn't have even the slightest bit of vanilla taste. I don't put milk or sugar in my coffee. But what I'm saying is, you have a right to know what it is you're taking. When you get a prescription from the drugstore, well, if you talk to your doctor first, they'll usually explain, the usage and why you're giving it to you and stuff. And then the pharmacist will give you, stapled to the prescription usually is this sheet of paper. I mean, the print, you got to get giant reading glasses on to read it, but it's going to tell you all the possible side effects and, what it's used for, other uses, and blah, blah, blah. And, in some cases, you might even see the chemical composition of it, right? I've seen that already, right? And so what's the big secret about this? Right? And there's some people out there who would argue, say, well, they told us it was an RNA thing and that this is how it works. I saw on the news they had like an animation. Yeah. No, that's the news. Right? What was that? I want to see. See, they should have had considering that they used to have all these press conferences almost daily about this thing, right? It's like bureaucrats. They just love to talk, but they don't work. It's like I heard somebody say yesterday. Why doesn't that guy with the F, you didn't say his name. This, what's he doing on TV all the time? Right? He clearly, if he's constantly just on doing interviews and stuff like that, he's certainly not working. He's not in a lab. So he's talking and on TV all the time. Well, shouldn't he have vanished for about 3 or 4 weeks and gone and sat in the labs and, and had reports and sat in, you know what I mean? And gone through all this stuff so he knows what he's talking about? I mean, every day he's on like multiple TV channels talking about stuff, and it's like, well, like, what do you know? And what are you hiding? Why can't you, why aren't you why aren't they releasing those documents? I don't know. I'm starting to get really kind of weird about, weird feelings about this. I have no idea, the idea of them sending some kind of thing to my house. And then the idea, because I'm seeing something, I may be wrong, I hope I'm wrong. But I see something. What's the purpose of doing this? This sounds like Austria. This sounds like Germany. This sounds like Australia, like Norway or Sweden, wherever in the UK, these places where they're all either have implemented or on the verge of implementing mass, and they're not telling us what they're giving us. And yet every day they're telling us, oh, it doesn't, this doesn't work, and you're going to need this, and you're going to need more of it. It's endless. We have a right to know. It's funny that the same people will argue, the woman's right to choose or something, right? But apparently people don't have the right to choose what their body when it comes to something that the government is making a profit on. It's like I said, it's hypocrisy. And it's hypocrisy for profit, which I stressed yesterday. And that's the thing. So I don't know. Like I say, we'll see what happens, but something's freaky, something's weird is going on, and and as far as I know, there's a treatment available. I already talked to my doctor. I said, and she just nodded. I said, if I get this thing, I said, I just want the the treatment, the antibodies and whatever. And she just, she basically, then she repeated what the real names of all those things were. I said, yeah. She was good with it, fine with it. It's like, so the heck with this. This is weird. This is, like I say, heard another person say something. This is going to be like the third year or something. And this is just not the way things are. There's something else at play here. Now, maybe it's just pure hypocrisy for profit. I mean, but that would be really kind of insane if you would think about it. Could you imagine that all of this crazy insanity is all based on big pharma making hundreds of billions of dollars, and that they don't give a flying, acrobatic, fuck about us? And so all the traumatized children, all the traumatized adults, all the people that are hiding in their houses, people who didn't get tests for cancer, like they, and all these kinds of things, couldn't go and get their, PSA tests or mammograms or, all this other stuff. Like I say, the CDC hasn't released updated causes of death in a couple of years. Right? I mean, let's just look at that for the sake of it. I'm going to go to new window. Let's see. CDC causes of death. Yeah, see, look at 2019. Well, causes of death 2020. Let's see. provisional mortality data. Fast stats, leading causes of death. (2019). See if you look down the bottom. Okay, let's go back there where it said provisional. Let's see. Provisional mortality data. See, this is interesting. So what they're trying to say is that, see, this is the part this is the part that I think is going, that they're not being specific about. Let's see. See, I knew they were going to try to play some kind of game like this. Okay, yeah. See, they're putting this in charts. Notice this thing. Deaths for which COVID-19 was a contributing but not the underlying cause of death are not included in this figure. Okay? And so what they're saying is heart disease is up there around 700,000, cancer, and they threw COVID in here for 2020 statistics as the third leading cause of death, right? Next to basically, chronic lower respiratory disease. See, they're going to have to steal out of diabetes, in the traditional influenza, kidney influenza, diabetes, and chronic lower, from here. So they plug this thing in. Now, the point of this thing is, what I'm trying to get at is that they haven't changed the numbers, in a freaky way, right? So let's go back to here and I will show you what I'm talking about. You see, all they did was they plugged in COVID in here, but in other words, so they're saying nobody died. They didn't take anything out of the heart disease numbers, which I find that, in other words, but if you saw how it's stated on that asterisk, it said where it was. So the question is it who they died with or from, right? So they're saying it's the third leading cause of death, but the thing is, it's people with diabetes, the flu and pneumonia obviously is what this thing is, right? And then, of course, people who might end up with chronic lower respiratory diseases. This is kind of where it lives, right? Right. So, and then, of course, they're saying that it affects the heart. So my take on this is that these bureaucrats have nothing better to do, right, than to produce the stuff, right? What are they doing? So they're not literally listing, Yeah. This report has been corrected and an erratum has been published. So, yeah, this is really weird. So they made a meme. You see this? That you could copy and you could see that they actually made a meme. And I'm saying, how could heart disease still be 690 and cancer still be 598? Right? When it's these people, that, particularly the heart disease people, that died from this. Did you see? Yeah, this is what I'm trying to say. Like, what the heck is an ad doing on a CDC related site? Yeah. See, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. I'm trying to read this. Hopefully you're looking at this too. See, according to this one, this is how you know that something's fishy here. We were told that the suicide rate went up, and this is saying the suicide rate went down. Right? Yeah, this is really this is like totally ridiculously fishy. You know, where do these deaths come from? Right? In other words, nobody died from heart disease. Can you see this thing here too, by the way? I have no idea what those things are. Somebody said it's some kind of weird, you know. Anyway, let's get rid of that. Well, I don't know. My seat's falling down. And I'm being choked by my headphones. And it's still dark outside. You see that flashing light? That's one of my Christmas lights is flashing. Isn't that funny? Well, I don't know. Excuse me. Coughing like Biden coughed during his speech the other day. Ah, damn, this coffee. Can't fill it up to the top. This is the worst. This is the worst coffee ever. Ugh. Anyway, hello, people, as somebody says.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
I'm not going to post this one around too much, I don't think, necessarily. But, I mean, I could put it on the social media. Thinkin about drinking on Thirsty Thursday. Anyone wants to join me later? Sometime around midday, you know. It's weird, you know. There's like a friend of mine that I wanted to have a couple of beers with, but, you know, who probably is not watching this show because I know nobody's watching it right now. But, you know, these people work in the daytime and, you know, everything's evening to them. It's like, you know, the best time to have a drink is around the middle of the day. Retire. Thinking about drinking.
It's the holiday season.
Oh, what I should have done, I would have, except a friend of mine is supposedly coming down this morning on her way to go visit family for the holidays, and she was going to stop by and originally was going to give me a ride down to the grocery store, but I don't really need to go to the grocery store. I'm thinking about drinking. So, Yeah, I don't know about that. That stuff. It's crazy. It's really weird. And, a guy like me talking like this, obviously, I ain't going to get into the, the banning and the lack of popularity or any of those issues, because none of that stuff applies. And I covered all that stuff yesterday. It's just, I'm over, I don't know if I deleted the video or not, but the video where I was like really questioning why I did this and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm kind of over that whole overwhelming feeling of uselessness of doing, being, an exercise in futility, even doing this thing. Like, I don't have that feeling anymore, Past couple nights, I've had a fairly decent night of sleep, even though I've woken up numerous times because my cat's like nocturnally crawling around me. I'm a light sleeper. I used to take a pill, there's a pill for everything. But I used to take like this pill. It wasn't really a sleeping pill. It was like kind of like some kind of relax pill and I was taking a higher dose of these things, and they were giving me, that was like giving me I was sleeping through the night, more soundly. But I don't want to have, these kind of chemicals, high doses of chemicals in my brain, messing with me. Because it's just like I say, it's like that movie Awakenings. Eventually you just build up a resistance, or, you need more and more of a thing in order for it to function. And then at that point, then there's nothing, And you've ruined some kind of receptor that may be some natural thing, can, you don't want to mess with the chemistry of your own body, right? So but for the most part, I do eat extremely healthy, and apart from this stupid coffee, which I don't, and I'm sorry I bought that stuff. I mean, I don't know what I could do to make that taste better. It's it's almost like I have instant coffee in the refrigerator. It's almost like this kind of thing. I feel like getting a spoonful of instant coffee, Folgers, and just stirring it into that to give it some coffee flavor. It almost tastes like it really is just probably like, they got this big vat of sawdust, and they dyed it coffee color and added, a couple, some drops of vanilla flavoring maybe, but because it smells, when you open the packet, it has a little bit of vanilla smell. But when it comes through the coffee, this is no vanilla roast. So everything is wrong. You don't know what you don't know. Game over. And the bogeyman in chief is now doubling down, and they're going to send out tests to people. And somehow these people on the news media get all cheerful when the case numbers go up. Right? And so now they're going to send out these tests. And so the case numbers, so they'll have like millions of cases, right? Maybe there'll be like 50 million cases, positives, some ridiculous, extraordinary number, right? Which is going to freak out people, right? Make them go crazy. But the thing is, my theory is that mostly everybody already has been exposed to whatever this thing is, and will test probably positive for it. And that's a good thing, because that's how you get herd immunity. But they just don't have symptoms. You see? And so your body gets it, builds a natural immunity to a virus. You see, remember, novel or not, this thing is still is a virus. It is an influenza. It's a flu. It doesn't matter if it's novel. You see what I mean? They haven't debated that. Okay? So the point is, this isn't bulletproof. You still have to explain. How do you explain the people who are asymptomatic? That why they have to use that word, and that what that word means. It's not like you're asymptomatic. It's basically they won't use the word immune. What it means is that your immune system is working. Screw the word asymptomatic, right? I mean, a lady who runs a paint store use that word, right? She's no scientist. Where do I felt like going to her and saying, "You're watching too much news, lady, using a word like that. Do you even know how to spell asymptomatic?" Is that a Y in there or what? How many M's? No, you're immune. If you don't have any symptoms, that means your immune system's working and it's fighting it off. It's not like you're asymptomatic. I mean, technically you could say that you have no symptoms, but the other word that they refuse to say, it's like an outlawed word, is that you're immune to it. When I've been exposed to people, and I've been exposed to people who've had it bad, who already had the, multiple, things taken. But they still got it. And they were around me when they were shedding it and, and all that stuff. And I didn't get it. Right? And no, it's my thing I do with the handkerchief. It's legendary white handkerchief. Clean my mustache off. I've been here every day, for over a year. Every morning for over a year. So you've seen me, right? I haven't had any sickness. And once or twice I blew my nose on the air off just to the side because I was going to sneeze just from, cat dander or something. Cat was around or something. No. Immune system. Eat the food. Eat food. Some people have strong immune systems. There's 330 million people in the United States. The CDC is putting these provisional numbers out, and they just plop this thing in the middle, but they're not telling you. So, in other words, what they're saying is, and they have that big asterisk. They say that the underlying causes. So, what they're trying to say is that was there an increase in heart disease? How does a heart disease, deaths from heart-related issues and pulmonary things stayed the same? Right? See, they can't justify that. So they just made this new category and said it was the third leading cause of death. But that's not true. We know that's not true. Right? So they needed to they have to take those numbers of heart disease should have been reduced and put into the COVID file. Just like the lower respiratory should have been moved and diabetes should have been moved into the COVID thing, but they didn't. Those numbers stayed the same. So what did these people die from? Right? And that's 2020, right? What did they really die from? In other words, they didn't die, it didn't get in their lungs, or what didn't cause complications, some kind of lower respiratory complications. It didn't cause complications in their heart or kidneys or liver or anything like that. Do you see what I mean? That's not an answer. That's a real fishy, fake, fucked up chart. And people look at that and accept it. And they're going like, well, what is this? Shouldn't that have just been under actually the influenza? Because that's what it is. Right? And why is influenza and pneumonia listed together? That's another thing that cracks me up. Why don't they separate that? Don't they know the difference? Right? That's fishy. That was fishy. Last year when I was looking at those numbers, going back to 2019. You see? Because they don't want to. In other words, this should have been under influenza. And in parentheses, it should have said, SARS-CoV-2. And they're not doing that, right? Just like the FDA won't release the data and saying it's going to take them 70 years. They're hiding something. I mean, that's not a conspiracy theory. The question is, why aren't they telling us, giving us the straight, facts on this thing? They have them. It's not national security. Or is it? Right? Or is there something fishy going on here? Do they know something that they're not telling the American people, the taxpayer, that they work for? I should say who they work for. Right? What's the big secret? You can't have that. You don't, the people don't, the influenza, it causes a thing to occur in your body. All right, people are affected different ways. Now, they have said that. I used to watch this stuff last year when I had the TV. I watched the reports. I mean, this is day in, day out. It's like it's all COVID all the time, like it used to be all Trump all the time. They just needed to replace the thing. As far as I'm concerned, this is all, apart from the whole hypocrisy of everything going on, this is just the way for the media. It's for a certain political class to stay in power, for Big Pharma to make hundreds of billions, if not $1 trillion, and for the media to make hundreds of billions of dollars and to stay afloat, right? And unless they could come up with some other explanation and start giving us the straight out facts. Because the reality is anyone who dies of something. You see? In other words, a thing affects you in some way. It's like how they have on the CDC site, like I said, they package together influenza and pneumonia. That's like kind of not right. What they're saying is, I guess, is influenza leads primarily to pneumonia deaths or something, but they're not. You're saying that the Center for Disease Control, getting reports from hospitals, doctors nationwide, right? People reporting to them, can't differentiate between, the flu and pneumonia, right? What about bronchitis and, whatever? See, it kind of makes you wonder about this whole influenza thing to begin with, right? That maybe this is just an amplification, an augmentation of something that they've been doing in a lesser degree with flu shots for years, for decades, right? A justification for a thing. I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's just like I say, you want straight answers, and we're not getting them. We're not getting straight answers. And that's all people want. People just want to know the truth. They just want to know the answers, the facts. It's not a national security issue, so they can't hide behind that. So why don't they just tell us, what's going on? In simple layman's terms. Right? And that chart, what we just saw there, was basically the same 2019 chart where they just added a line. Right? And they're saying suicides went down when they've been telling us over the past 2 years that the suicide rate has gone up. But according to that, the suicide rate went down by 3,000 or 4. Suicides are up. That's what they've been telling us. So they're trying to say suicides are down. That's weird too. That's really fishy, right? And then unintentional, deaths and, what does that include? Where's the fentanyl and, drug overdose deaths, which are way high, right? There was a lot of stuff missing from that chart, right? They magically have also taken off homicides and stuff like that. We know from previously that they were like 90,000 a year, and the majority of which were unsolved. We talk about that all the time. But if homicides, apparently crime rates have skyrocketed over the past year. So the thing is, we're not going to see these numbers until they get everybody takes this test which is put something in your body or on your body or in your mouth or whatever it's going to be. And everybody takes a pill that we don't know what's in it because it took them 70 years for the FDA to release what's in this stuff. I mean, this isn't funny at all. It's not funny at all, man.
Your papers, please.
I don't know. All I know is that I think I'm like a lot of people where I'm at this point now where I'm ready to just padlock my door and just stay inside. And when I go outside, my backyard's fenced in and I'll just go out the back door, board up my front windows, stop receiving mail, don't send me anything. I'm not going to receive it. I'll pay my bills online and let the mail just, I don't trust liars. I don't trust people. Figures lie and liars figure. I don't trust people that put up graphs and have asterisks and like links, erratum, right? Because they know people don't understand Latin, right? Previous document contained erratum, right? Why doesn't it? Come on, this is a website, cdc.gov. Why didn't you say the previous document contained errors, or things that weren't true? And here's a link to where we're going to dance around about one of them, but, there's other ones. Magically, we're going to erase a few things. Yeah. It's really weird. It's really weird. It's a pity people don't watch this show. Because there could be, you'd have chat and whatnot, and, people could talk about this stuff instead of these fake chat things that come up. VAWR.tech, whatever that, I don't know what the heck that nonsense is. I know there's supposedly ways you can block this stuff, but, it's like spam. Once you start messing with it, it just like makes it worse, right? Oh no! I got to get a little more in a festive mood somehow.
It's the holiday season.
Yeah. It just brings you down. That's all. I don't know. Like I say, so I don't know about these shows because the more I get into it and the more I start talking on them, the more I end up getting like, semi-depressed about this stuff. See, it's still dark outside. 6:05 a.m. Eastern Time on the 23rd of December. And I am here with a Santa hat on, reading glasses. Teeth are fairly in good shape, considering. And, Christmassy stuff behind me. Holiday stuff. Let's see what's on. Oh, not that. Let's go to the video capture device. Let me put this on again. Let's go look and let's just put up a new window and see what's all on YouTube. Let's see what people are doing here. I'm listed on my own, thinking about drinking on Thirsty Thursday. This thing here, this is Tattoo. He just won't let this thing go. I don't know what's going on with that, man. And I guess I'll probably watch this one. I watch these guys. They're building some kind of, they call it a tiny house, but I don't know. It's kind of weird. But here's my Everything You Know Is Wrong song. 57 views from 6 years ago. Only 57 views, and it's been up for 6 years. Let's see what else. This is the face. This girl here looks like a girl. She's not. That's a fake face. That's the state of the art. And this guy here, well, I watch them sometimes. I watch a lot of this stuff on my TV upstairs. Let's see here. Israel set to offer a 4th dose. Updated guidance for clinicians. Getting tomorrow. I mean, this stuff is ridiculous. This is one of my videos from 14 years ago. Amazon fishermen using bow and arrow to catch a fish. 6.3, 6,300 views. 14 years ago, I was actually getting in, thousands of people viewing my stuff. I see Paul Watson's got something up. It's ridiculous. Anyway. And there's another one of these now just came in. So yeah, I don't know. This is kind of,
It's the holiday season.
It's pretty slow. I don't really see myself getting this thing picking up. Nobody seems to be watching. I'm an hour and 13 minutes into this. I'm going to probably be going to the grocery store. Maybe they open at 7. So I think I'm just going to end this show. I'm not going to put it up on social media. It's a nice card. If someone discovers it, they discover it. But, the heck with it. I'm really kind of perplexed, annoyed with this hypocrisy for profit that's going on. Disappointed in people for being so just taking all this stuff at face value. And and like I said, it takes the wind out of your sails to do this stuff because it requires preparation. I have all these things. It could be a lot of fun. We've had a bunch of fun on these shows,
Really funny. Really funny.
But, it's like, it gets to the point where you're going, it's a world gone mad. People have lost their minds and they're just, whatever. I don't know what the motivation is behind these people besides money and power, megalomania, right? And, because there is no logic. You really don't think they care about your health, right? You really don't. No, you're not foolish enough to actually believe that. You think anybody, news reader or politician, really cares about you? No, they don't care about you. They want to be reelected and hold on to their money and power. You think Big Pharma cares about you? If you stood in the way of Big Pharma, man, they'd take you out. I used to know guys who were in the corporate espionage and stuff. When you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars, $1 trillion industry and stuff like that, life is very cheap. You see that stuff that goes on in those, Bond movies and stuff? People being, shot and killed, and these corporate megalomaniacs trying to take over. That's Davos set. People think that's like fantasy, I mean, Ian Fleming, and that goes back to the 60s, a lot of his ideas and his stories, but he actually was a spy, and so that stuff was based on his story, just like these guys who write these Washington thrillers, political thrillers and stuff. We're all insiders and have, we're all a part of the scene down there. Those stories aren't make-believe. Like I've said many times, they're watered down. The truth is far, far, far scarier and more deadly than fiction, right? But people don't know that. They don't believe that. They think, oh, that's just a movie, right? You fools. I have to say that, you fools. Yeah, I don't know. I'll probably be here tomorrow just because it's a habit, and I'll probably see this through Kwanzaa. Since I have a dashiki, so Sunday I'll be on with a dashiki. Tomorrow will be Christmas Eve. I'll wear my Christmas Santa costume, maybe. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I don't know what to talk about anymore. Like today's show, it's like, I don't know. What am I going to talk about? Nothing. Right? Who cares? Still dark outside. All right, folks. Well, for those of you who decided to watch this thing, I'm glad you did. Glad you came along. Thanks. But yeah, I'm out of here. So,
Good morning.
Take care. If I disappear from this arena, check out my website, rockflux.com. At least I have my own server. And I'm also on Locals.